Have you hugged an entrepreneur today? I wanted to take some time and sort of do a homage video, a toast to the entrepreneurs of the world, those who take the risk and start businesses. In a previous video, I had made the assertion that the single most important thing for a vibrant and healthy economy is the proliferation of many small and medium-sized businesses. And I wonder if people on the surface realize that or even agree with it. And I would ask you to challenge me on that in the comments. I was reading a book by Nassim Taleb called Skin in the Game, and I'm just gonna switch screens here for a moment so I can read you a quote from that book. It's near the end of the book. He says, quote, "Finally, when young people who want to help mankind come to me asking, what should I do? I want to reduce poverty, save the world, and similar noble aspirations at the macro level. My suggestion is 1, never engage in virtue signaling." Good advice. 2, never engage in rent seeking. We'll leave that for another discussion, but the crux of the concept of rent seeking is the crony capitalism, bastardization of capitalism, where you leverage lobbying and things to create laws and regulations that take away from how the free market can ordinarily work and give a unfair competitive advantage to a particular player or actor within the economy. So that's a different discussion. But number 3 in his quote is, you must start a business. Put yourself on the line, start a business. So getting back to it, ask yourself, is this true? Do you believe that? Why? Why would someone as bright as Mr. Taleb, why would he assert, why would I in a previous video assert that the most important thing you can do to help mankind to create a robust economy is to start a business? Now, he's talking about just giving advice to people who want to help mankind. I made the, say, less bold statement of to help the economy, but we should tie those together because the economy, a thriving economy, there's a reason why it is so often the main platform that political candidates speak on regarding trying to get elected. And that's because it's so critically important. In the areas where the economy is stagnant or worse, is really, really bad, you just notice that people's lives kind of suck. And I don't want to be trite. People are suffering. Right now, when we're going through an economic downturn, many people suffer. A thriving economy makes everyone's lives better. Maybe not every single person, that's the top thing on their mind, but when you think about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have at a base level a need to be able to provide for ourselves. And a thriving economy generally means it's an easier environment in which to be able to provide for your basic needs. You know, to put a roof over your head, to clothe yourself, to feed yourself and your family. So let's discuss today. This video, the purpose of this video, my objective is for, if you're watching and you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, hats off to you. I want you to be encouraged by this video. And if you're watching and you don't own a business, I'd like you to forward this to somebody that you do know that owns a business and, congratulate them, thank them for making everyone's lives better. It's not easy, it's very difficult. And when people are successful, ironically, when they're very successful running a business, it's almost like if you're unsuccessful running a business, then you're a good guy. But if you're super successful, you're one of the elite, the top 1%, and you're evil in some way. And I just can't make the connection. Starting a business, everybody has the goal of becoming successful. And the economy, the point I'm trying to make in this video is that the economy and everyone's lives in society improve as a result of the success of particular businesses. So let's discuss that. Again, if you own a business, thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution to mankind and our society. If you don't, and you're an employee, go and thank the owner of the business. Or if you know someone, a friend or a relative who owns a business, forward the video to them and give them a compliment and thank them for improving our lives. Or debate me on this and say, no, Michael, that's not very important for us. So is this true? Is this concept true? Well, it comes down to basic economics. And when we talk about, our economy being robust, what are we really meaning? What is the definition that we're talking about when we talk about this? So I would say that we're talking about wealth creation. And the term wealth in and of itself, people, maybe you need to define that. What I mean when I'm talking about wealth is not somebody who's rich relative to somebody else. I'm talking about the improvement in our standard of living. Okay, so always within whatever standard of living, the global standard of living, a particular regional standard of living, within that there's going to be relative levels of wealth, right? There's going to be some people that are rich and some people that are less rich or poor, even impoverished perhaps. But wealth creation occurs through the creation of businesses. And why is that? The first thing is that our entrepreneurs invest to start businesses. Okay, so they're injecting capital that, whether they succeed or fail, the economy has that put into it, and they do that in the effort of creating value of some sort. At a base level, everybody has to come up with a business idea, something that they have to add value. People vote with their dollars. They vote with their feet and their dollars. You don't attend businesses and you don't engage in commerce with businesses that don't offer you value. I mean, that would be charity, and that's unsustainable to expect people to just trade their hard-earned money for something that has no value. So it's sort of obvious, and it's just intuitive that we should understand that when someone starts a business, they are trying to bring value to the marketplace so that prospective customers will make the determination that the customer wants a product or service more than he wants the money that he's going to trade for that product or service. And even if a business fails, they bring that to the market in their attempt, right? They make the investment in society, they make the investment in their business. And you have to think of the ripple effect of that investment, whether a business fails or succeeds. So there's this concept of money velocity, and that's the idea that, so you spend $1 in, you put a dollar in circulation, I go and spend the dollar, I buy something with it, and then whoever's the recipient of that dollar, say the business I spent it on, what do they spend it on, and so on and so on and so on. And the more times that it is circulated, the higher the velocity. And when a business owner invests money in his business, he's often investing in equipment, he may be investing in personnel, inventories, and so on. And you can see that there is this ripple effect that many other people benefit from this. So whether we're talking about he's an employer, he's hiring people, so then that's obvious that a business that employs people, other people can earn money from that employer and support their needs and their family. And if he is purchasing inventories or supplies from a vendor or equipment from someone else, then there's this whole thing throughout the supply chain and third-party vendors and everything where multiple layers of people benefit from the investment in a business. So as I say, whether a business succeeds or fails, you have that automatically. So that enriches everyone automatically. The alternative, I always like to look at the alternative. Let's do that a lot throughout this conversation. The alternative is the person doesn't invest that. They sit on the money. They don't invest it. They put it in their mattress, so to speak. Nothing happens. No wealth is created. No value is created. The more successful a business is, the more value is created. And we know that fundamentally because nobody will give them their money unless there's value there. The example that's so often used is Apple. You know, the iPhone has been one of the most successful products of our generation, of our lifetimes. And without the creation of the iPhone, without the value, or if you created something called the iPhone and it sucked, if there wasn't any value there, nobody would spend the hard-earned money on it, or a few people would, and the early adopters would. They'd learn that it's not a good product and they wouldn't want it again, and the business would fail. But it didn't fail, it succeeded, not because anyone was tricked, because in a free market, people freely exchange their money for that product that they like. So that, as an example of great success, more and more money is exchanged and that velocity occurs, and it creates wealth for everyone. It improves the standard of living for everyone. So as the business becomes more successful, inherently we can understand that everybody's standard of living is improving because we're all getting a product or service that we want more than the money that we have to exchange for that product or service. We're not forced to go out and buy the iPhone or a particular meal from a successful restaurant or any other product or service you can think of. And so the other thing that occurs as businesses become more successful, in order to grow their capacities, they reinvest. Again, maybe they're buying more equipment, they're paying more to suppliers for raw materials. The supply chain benefits more. And also, because of the laws of economies of scale, the price tends to come down for the things that they're producing. In other words, if you produce one widget, there are some fixed costs to produce that widget, and your pricing, in order to be able to get your investment back, would have to be way higher than if you were able to produce 10 widgets. Because some of the costs in producing 10, like as a simple example might be the person who puts the widget together. Maybe he's capable within a period of time of creating 10 widgets, but there's only demand for one, so he only creates one. And you have to pay that person their salary for the day, for the period of time, the month, or whatever. Now, if they could produce 10, now that salary may be the same, and they ended up producing 10, but you're getting the sale price on 10, so you tend to be able to lower, since your expenses are lower, you can lower your price. That should make sense intuitively, that more successful businesses, through economies of scale and through volume and more customers purchasing and engaging in the economic transactions with them, drive down prices. The other thing, and the other way in which businesses are so important to improving our standard of living, is through innovation. There's a natural thing in a market economy in which you can't survive without always trying to innovate, always trying to find ways to add more value, and we all benefit from that. I used the example a moment ago about the iPhone. Well, you consider all the iterations of the iPhone. The original iPhone, and 1, 2, 3, 10, I don't know what we're on right now, is it like 13 or something? But each iteration was a little bit better, and we all benefited from it. Typically what happens in innovation is that the price doesn't proportionately increase with the benefits that the product offers us. Instead, what often happens, especially in technology, is that the price may go down while the benefits improve. And so regardless, it's not just technological businesses. As businesses succeed, they are typically succeeding because they innovate, because they create more value than a a competitor that's in the same market as them does. And in doing so, if we use the example of a restaurant, if you had two restaurants side by side, and one of them is perceived as offering much better value for the money, for the meal that you spend there, than the one beside him, and the quality, all other things were equal, customers are going to reward that business owner, the business that offers more value for the money, and he's going to succeed. Maybe the other one perhaps doesn't succeed. But the point, of course, is always that through the innovation, through the ripple effect of the investment in the economy, through employment, there's an increase in our overall standard of living in society, in the economy, and that's wealth creation. As mentioned earlier, a mental exercise I like to do when considering a concept like this is to consider the alternative. So I mentioned the alternative of somebody who had money that they may decide to invest in a business, but instead they left it in their mattress and it didn't go into circulation and improve the standard of living. Let's look at it even more basic. What is the alternative to starting a business? Those people watching this who have started a business know how hard you have to work to make that business succeed. What's the opposite of that? Let's say you're lazy. Let's say you don't do anything. And I'm not saying that if you don't own a business, you're lazy. There are plenty of people that are working incredibly hard at all levels and in all places in the economy. But I just want to, for a theoretical alternative to the concept of being a hardworking business owner, going out there, what would be, say, the opposite of that? So let's say we have a person who does nothing. He wakes up in the morning and he just sort of exists. He just waits for people to provide for him. He's not going out and starting a business. He does nothing. He's not creating value. And that's what we all have to do as part of a society. We have to create value. But you might philosophically disagree with that. Then I would say to you, okay, so how can you provide for your own needs? In the example I gave a moment ago, the guy who wakes up and does nothing. He can't provide for himself by doing nothing. So he said, oh, no. He has a garden in his backyard. He goes and gardens. Okay, well now he's creating value, at least for himself. He might be growing vegetables. He's productive. In some way, he's productive. And if all he does is produce enough and he's able to sustain his own, his food, and he builds his own house and everything, then he's productive, and that's fine. To each his own. What a business owner is trying to do, what an entrepreneur is trying to do, is to create a surplus of value beyond what they need for their own sustenance, for themselves and for their family. A business owner is trying to create, of course, that, but also more, so that they get a return on their investment in the business and they can grow their business. So again, as you see that, you have to sort of fundamentally agree that if a person was able to create something of value, and they were able to create enough of it that not only could they provide for themselves, but they had a surplus they could provide for others in exchange for some form of currency, some kind of exchange of goods, that they had a surplus, that's how wealth is created. And what do they do with that wealth? Entrepreneurs tend to reinvest it, whether it's in stock market, which really investing in businesses, or their own personal business. They're reinvesting in. Some are philanthropic and are donating and that kind of thing. But the surplus, as long as it's not being stuffed in the mattress, the proverbial mattress, it's going back into the economy and improving the standard of living for everyone. So again, thinking of a person who's doing nothing, producing nothing, they're not creating value, they're not improving the standard of living for everyone. The person who is trying to be as productive as possible and is able to do so because of maybe his talents, his intellect, whatever, the resources that he has, he leverages them to be as productive as possible and is able to create a surplus. That surplus we all benefit from. And so the other mental exercise I like to do is sort of like a desert island. Let's see where this discussion goes. I don't know if this is going to make much sense. But well, before we get into the desert island, some of you may be thinking, well, as an alternative, what about the Marxist principle, like the Communist Manifesto idea of socialism and the government, central planning? That's a whole discussion unto itself. But I think people don't really look at that. It's not like they've read Marx and they understand exactly the whole concept, but they do like the campaign promises of more socialistic candidates who may say the government can somehow protect and provide for you. And I would challenge that notion. I would say that absolutely is proven to not work. But let's ask ourselves in this discussion, how is it possible that it can work? What does government produce of value? I mean, who is the government? We talk about the government like this entity that exists, but it's people, right? And they have some decision-making ability and some control and power over us that hopefully it was imparted upon them by the people in a democratic society, maybe. But what do they produce? What does government produce? The role of government is to simply protect individual rights and freedoms. That's what a government should do at its fundamental level, and we can discuss at another time we can discuss, well, what does that mean? But in terms of producing value, increasing the standard of living for everyone, how can government possibly do it? They can't. You might say, well, they can build infrastructure and that improves our standard of living. Well, where does government get the money to invest in infrastructure? Through taxation. If they're taxing their citizens, where does the citizen get the tax money? By producing, right? It has to start somewhere. Where does the money come from? You say, well, the central bank prints the money. They create it digitally. Fundamentally, you have to follow that through philosophically to where does that lead back to? You can't conjure value for actual living beings out of thin air, because we have to eat. And there's a ripple effect and there's a domino effect for everything. And that's where this should have been the segue to the concept of a desert island. Okay, so maybe Lord of the Flies, I don't know, maybe you like watching the show Lost. So let's, for the purpose of this mental exercise, imagine that we crashed or our ship was wrecked and we ended up on a desert island. Everybody ended up with the same thing. Basically, their clothes on their back. We all were part of a big tour group. We were all wearing the same shorts and t-shirts, and nobody has anything more than another. We all have the same set of sandals on, shorts, t-shirts, and all that we have is ourselves and the resources that are on the desert island. So what naturally occurs? Of course, the first thing is people got to start that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You got to start figuring out, well, how are we going to survive? Well, the first thing, how do we survive, is not to argue over politics and who's going to be the leader, and it's not going to be who's going to entertain us, and all those things are higher needs. And emotionally, how am I feeling? I need a little counseling because we crashed. Those things are higher up. On a base level, we need water to drink. We need shelter in case a hurricane blows in. Maybe that was what made our plane go down or our shipwreck or whatever. So you need shelter, you need water, like fresh drinking water, you need something to eat, you need clothing to protect you from, maybe you're susceptible to sunburn, maybe there's insects on the island that could, mosquitoes or something, but you need your most basic. So the first thing when we shipwreck is we start to look at, well, how are we going to provide those things? So maybe people explore. Now you might have somebody who on the island is weaker than another and is not able to go hiking toward the mountain to see what sort of resources they can find up there. And we could spend an hour just on this concept, and certainly was it J.J. Abrams spent seasons and seasons of developing the concept through Lost of what might happen on that deserted island. But what you can understand is there's sort of a division of labor that naturally occurs, is that people will start to ask themselves, well, how can I contribute? How can I be productive? What am I good at? And so somebody maybe have a particular instinct for fishing. And I think it was the Korean character in Lost, that he came from a poor fishing village family and his father taught him how to fish. So he was way more successful than other people that were trying to fish. We're not all created equal in terms of our abilities, right? So we have different experiences and we have different, some of us are taller, shorter, stronger, weaker, and that kind of thing. So what we do is we ask ourselves, how can I leverage what I inherently have to become productive? And so if the person who happens to know how to fish he's able to catch more fish than he needs, or him and his loved one need on the island to eat, he can now exchange and perhaps barter the extra fish for something else. Now, he might charitably give it away, and that's perfectly fine. You can say, well, I'll fish for everybody. But eventually you can imagine what's going to happen in that situation. The socialistic concept of, well, everybody, from each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs. And you say, well, that guy's a really good fisher, so he should do the fishing. And I am not a good fisherman, and I really need some food right now. I'm feeling weak, so he should give it to me. That concept might work if that's a loved one and we're very close. But eventually what happens is people go, this is not fair. I have needs too. I noticed that while I was out fishing, that you guys put this lean-to up there and you created this little hut. Well, because I'm fishing now, I'm going to sleep in the rain tonight. And so I'll give you this fish, but I'd like you to help me build a hut, or I'd like you tomorrow when I'm out fishing for us, I'd like you to build a hut. And you get the concept. Maybe there's somebody who is not handy at all and can't fish and can't build, but they've got a lovely singing voice. And we're on a desert island, nobody's got an iPod, nobody's got their smartphone with any MP3s that they can listen to. And so the person with the lovely singing voice entertains us and soothes us in the evenings around a fire and so forth. And speaking of a fire, some people may be good at, like I said, hiking and going out and finding firewood and figured out how to start a fire. They have the knowledge and the ability to do that. Some people are good at climbing trees and they can get the coconuts and so on. So everybody in the desert island thing has to ask themselves, what can I do? And it just naturally occurs. And if you are able to produce more for whatever reason, it could be your work ethic, you can create more wealth. And the person who can produce more than what he personally needs is going to become more wealthy, right? You can start trading those things, but everyone benefits. There's no sense in being envious of the person who is able to create more. Everyone benefits, and we're grateful for those people in our society. With that in mind, I return to the original concept. Hug an entrepreneur today. These are people who take risks, who go out of their way to produce, and they, if they're successful, produce more than they need to personally survive. And we all benefit from it. And throughout all the different things I said, the employment, the ripple effect through the supply chain, and the investment of their resources into society, even if they fail, we still benefit from it. So thank you. Thank you for all of you who try to start a business. As we wrap up this video, I'd like to invite you to comment and tell me what you think. Do you know someone that owns a business? How have they benefited you in your life? Or what examples can you think of that we all benefit from? Or do you not agree with this concept? Can you demonstrate or make a comment of how maybe through government intervention and social safety nets that we all might benefit And yeah, let's keep the discussion going. So until next time, thanks for watching.